Welcome to the Etsy Conversations podcast, featuring inspiring interviews with Etsy shop owners, hosted by Ijama Elazu.
Hi, and welcome to the Etsy Conversations podcast. I'm your host, Ijama, and I thank you for joining me for another episode. This week, I'm really excited. I feel like I say I'm excited every week, but I genuinely am excited when I have guests on because, one, I like to do the podcast, but in this case, my guest this week is someone that most of you who listen to the podcast are kind of aware of, if not himself, his product. My guest this week is Anthony. He's the founder of EtsyRank. And I know a number of you use EtsyRank, have mentioned EtsyRank in our conversations, have told me how much you love EtsyRank. And based on conversations I've had with other guests, I signed up for an account and I have confessed to Anthony that I did not use it, but I have my account. So we're going to talk all about EtsyRank, what it is, what tools it offers, and how you as an Etsy seller can benefit from using the tools within EtsyRank. And so, Anthony, thank you so much for being my guest, my long-awaited guest, and welcome to the podcast.
Thank you very much, Ijama. It's my pleasure to be here.
You are so welcome. Now, before we jump into it, can you just tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. So I've been working in the SEO game and web development since the mid-90s. I spent a dozen years working for Microsoft Search. I headed up their search and shopping team in Australia and later in Canada. So I've got oodles of insider experience tuning search relevancy algorithms, training machine learning algorithms, and conducting thousands of relevancy tests over the years. So, I feel like I've got some good skills there that I can share with others. I'd say, I've spent many years really closely analyzing search results pages and trying to figure out what makes search results more relevant and how to counter the shenanigans and that spammers and scammers try to use to fake their way to the top of search results. So it's been a fascinating road that I've been on, and as you can imagine, I've learned a lot about how search algorithms work and the good and bad ways that people try to get to page one. So with all that, I wanted a couple of years ago, I was watching my wife as she was learning Etsy, and I thought, wow, maybe I can take what I have in my mind and start to build tools and ways to help her sell on Etsy. And eventually I went, wow, this is great. Why don't I give it to everyone to use for free? So that's a quick about me in a minute and a half.
Yeah, thank you. I know I was going to say, and with all that SEO knowledge, why Etsy? But you just told us why. And I have a question. So I know that SEO and keyword research, all that initially for most Etsy sellers is not something that just makes our hearts just jump up with glee. Is it ever okay for a seller to fly by the seat of their pants and just do the best you can guessing at how to optimize our listings? Or do you think from the get-go this is something that needs to be mastered?
Wow, that's a great question. I think that, there's about 2 million shops on Etsy that probably started with no clue. I doubt that many sellers on Etsy were SEO experts to begin with. I dare say they were very talented and creative people first and foremost, and really struggled when it came to search engine optimization and all the great stuff that comes with that. I'll say great a little sarcastically, but you know what I mean. Uh-huh. Now I think there are some really good tools out there. So I think that it's really good for people that are just starting to sell on Etsy to do a little bit of homework, to use tools like EtsyRank to go through the seller handbook and do your market research, all these things, all the typical things you would have done to start a brick and mortar store years ago. You should do the same online now. If you're really serious, you want to do it right, take advantage of the resources and the tools that are available to you.
Okay. All right. So EtsyRank is a tool. It's actually not just a tool. It's a suite of tools. What tools do we get inside of EtsyRank?
There are so many in there, and it's hard to sort of summarize them quickly. I don't want to be talking to you for hours on this, but if I was to categorize them, and really the core values that sort of motivated me to build them, they're really tools that are there to help educate, inspire, and enable people to sell effectively on Etsy. So what that means in a little less marketing speak and a little bit more reality is they're tools to give you great keyword ideas, to perform listing analysis, and help you with things like competitive insights. So, we for example, we've got keyword tools that help you create or predict the levels of competition that your listings are likely to have and how much consumer demand there is for those specific items. So you start to get an understanding of, this could be a good word for me or my listing. We've got tools that analyze your listings and catch common mistakes that sellers make, and especially when you're creating listings for the first time. So they're like missing tags, spelling mistakes, and not enough images. And the other bucket of tools, I guess, are really around competitive insights, stuff that helps you discover shops that are doing well in their category or your category, and from there, tools that can help you learn from their success and apply it to your own shop.
Okay. So for someone that's new either to Etsy or to EtsyRank, what tool should they start with? Should we use the listing audits first, or should we do keyword research or competitor analysis? What's our best path to getting set up correctly?
Okay. So it depends on where you are at with your shop. So if you've got a brand new shop, you've just set up your name, maybe you've got a logo and that's about it. I would start with the keyword tool and start looking at the top sellers on Etsy and do your market research. So really learn, what the market's like, how many are out there that you'd be competing against, what they're selling, and what keywords they're using. Because as a seller, it's very hard to guess what buyers would be typing into a search engine. So, you might have a rough idea, but for the most part, you're a little too close to it. So have a look at what others have done, have a look at what experienced shops have done, shortlist some words and go, they look like pretty good words, and then go into the keyword tool and start to understand how much competition there is, how much, customer demand there is, and other sort of artifacts or related keywords that may be useful there. Okay. I think, on the other hand, if you're a shop that's been around for a while, I would start with a listing audit, because there you'd be surprised at how many people have skipped a few tags in their listings. And tags each tag is an opportunity. So if you don't use all 13 tags, it's a missed opportunity. Your listing may be doing okay, but what if you could add a few more tags in there? How much better could it be doing? So take that part of the listing audit and say, okay, I'm missing some tags here. Go and fix them up. They're easy things to correct. Things like spelling mistakes. I mean, I wouldn't rely on autocorrect for my SEO. Plus, as a buyer, it kind of looks a little bit sloppy. If you don't spell check your tags or your descriptions, then it sends the wrong message. So again, this can be highlighted through the listing audit and the tools on EtsyRank. And then, I think that's a good start. The last thing I'd say is with images, the old cliche, a picture tells 1,000 words. Well, if you can, try and put as many pictures in there as possible. You want to give the buyer every possible reason to buy your listing. If you've got one image in there and there's nothing that shows what it looks like from the back, from the top, or how well you package it or something like that, that could turn the buyer off. So the listing order is great at highlighting which listings could have more images in there. That's where I would begin if I was an established shop. And you'd be surprised, a lot of old shops that have been around for a long time and done really well still forget the odd tag here and there, don't put enough images in, and so forth.
Okay. Now, how much additional time does it take for someone who's using the EtsyRank tool when it comes to listing an item? Or in the long run, is it more of a time saver if using EtsyRank is something that we can do up front, then turn around and go and work on our listings?
It's a little hard to answer that, but I'll say this. The things like the dashboard, which is the first thing you see when you log into EtsyRank, it tells you where there are potential issues and opportunities. And if you were to go through and manually look at all your listings, I can't even begin to estimate how much time that would take for you to do that. The Etsy interface is pretty good nowadays, but it doesn't give you that great, view of your listings at that holistic level where you can just sort of say, oh, right, here are the issues I've got to go and deal with. So from that perspective, it's really hard to measure, but I've tried to boil it down in that dashboard to make it as easy as possible for you to identify any missed opportunities that you may have with your shop listings.
Okay. And speaking about creating an account, so part of creating an account means we need to link our Etsy shop to the EtsyRank tool. This is correct?
Yep,
okay.
That's correct. Yep.
If you don't mind me asking, should we worry about any type of security issues? What with, everything that goes on nowadays with security breaches and whatnot?
Yep. You should. I don't think anyone should be relaxed at all on the internet. And, things like GDPR and other initiatives in Canada and Europe and other places are there to, protect you from businesses that may not be operating with, good ethical motivations. I would never tell anyone to relax. Everything's safe. From an EtsyRank perspective, I'd like to be completely transparent. What I do is when you connect your shop to EtsyRank, we get read access to some of your information, and that's spelled out. Etsy force that put that in front of everyone, so you can see that we can read things like your listing information, draft listings, sales history, and things like that. We don't have access to write stuff to your shop, so we don't go in there and start tinkering around. That's an area that has been tempting from a positive point of view, maybe for bulk editing, but I look at that and go, I want to keep it to read only, protect your information, and, if EtsyRank isn't for you, you can go and disconnect your shop. There are links in the settings page to help you do that. But I in terms of your data and your privacy, that to me is utmost importance. I'm a tinfoil hat guy. I value my privacy, and I treat everyone like that as well. Your data is not allowed to be shared with anyone. Etsy been very clear about what's public and private data.
Yeah.
And, that's great. And I think that companies like Etsy are great like that. I try and follow everywhere I can possibly. And I hope that helps a little bit answer the question there.
Yes, it does. Thank you. It does put my mind at ease, and hopefully somebody else listening who has similar concerns. Now, there are other tools on the market that do that offer services similar, not exactly identical to what EtsyRank offers. How is EtsyRank different, or what sets EtsyRank apart from other tools in this same space?
What I think sets us apart from other services or similar services is just how much you get for free on EtsyRank. In my mind, it's by far the widest range of free tools you can get on Etsy. or for Etsy sellers, I should say. And they're not crippled either. So you don't, just get a little bit of a taste of it, can only use it for one day. You can get in there and you can use all these free tools for as long as you like. I wanted Etsy to be that way. I didn't want to be trying to penny pinch and get every single penny I can possibly get out of a seller. That's not how I am motivated personally. It wasn't how I was brought up. So for instance, you can connect as many shops as you have to your EtsyRank account. You can use the tools as often as you like and never have to pay a penny. We also have a paid version, but I'm not going to put the hard sell on people either. I know that for a lot of Etsy sellers out there, they face a day-to-day struggle. So, that's why the tools are there for free. I think that's what differentiates us from a lot of the other services out there.
Yes, and I know, having talked with a number of other sellers who use EtsyRank, one thing that a number of people have mentioned to me is that, and don't be offended by this, that they get so much for free, they don't know if and when they need to upgrade to a paid account, because
Yep.
you give so many tools for free, like full access to really useful tools without them having to pay. So I'm going to make you talk about what we get if we decide to upgrade, because I know you don't want to put a hard sale on it, but I think it's good to know anyway. So if someone exhausts, which I think is almost impossible, exhausts everything that they can use in a free account, what additional features come with an upgraded paid subscription?
Okay. I might digress a little bit here, but I might just sort of start by saying, for me, the ideal person or the ideal EtsyRank user is someone that's ready to put in the work that's required to sell on Etsy.
Okay.
So we don't do all the thinking for you. We can't do that, but we can give you the tools to help you along the way. So, if you're a person that's, a no excuses sort of person, you're prepared to roll up your sleeves, do the market research, and really take control of your destiny on Etsy, then EtsyRank's good for you. And a lot of free people, free users are exactly like that. They're very motivated. They want to get in there and go for it. And, for the beginners, the shops that are just starting out, perhaps you've just opened an account on Etsy and got your logo ready and done nothing more than that. We've got things that can help you straight away, which are totally free, like a draft listing feature, which you can go through and review your listings for those common mistakes and missed opportunities before you even publish them. So I wanted to get that out of the way first because, I really want to cover everyone as equally as possible. Okay. And those people can also do all their keyword and market research. Now, to really answer your question, if you're more of an intermediate or an advanced user or seller on Etsy, so you maybe you've got to 100 sales, you've gone over that first major hurdle, and you're looking at it and going, wow, why do my competitors have so many more sales than me? What am I doing wrong? I've copied their tags or whatever you've done. Then this is where EtsyRank Pro can become very interesting for you, because in here you get much more detailed information. So, for example, in the keyword tool, you get things like keyword trends, which are really, really helpful for people that sell seasonal items. So, if, for example, you sell jewelry, then you may have two good times of the year, which is the lead up until Christmas and maybe Mother's Day. You might have a little bump in Valentine's Day, and maybe you optimize for wedding season or something like that. Having access to that sort of trend information and being able to look at all the other keyword statistics on the one screen is one of the things that EtsyRank Pro users have. So it really gives you a lot of rich information and that trend data so that you can start to understand whether now is a good time to use certain keywords or whether maybe later in the year it's a good time to use keywords. Also, if you're a seller that's been around for a while, knowing what your best sellers are, it's a little hard to get that information out of Etsy. Again, I've said their interface is getting much better. Mm-hmm. It's still a little difficult to understand what your best sellers are. And, you may have a reasonably good sense, but when you start looking at reports like the bestseller report that we've got, you can look in there and sort all your listings that have ever sold and go, I didn't realize that this bestseller of mine that's sold over 100 times hasn't actually sold in the last 60 days. Sometimes you don't know about these things. And this is really it's a strange dilemma that a shop, say with several thousand sales has. You know, they've had some great historical sales, and then maybe stuff falls off the radar, and this sort of report helps you figure out, oh wow, this item, I didn't restock it. Maybe I changed the keywords or the tags and killed the SEO. And this bestseller report can identify those ones that are underperforming, and you can go into a feature in there which is called this the sales history, and that'll show you things like the image, the title, and the tags that listing had each time it sold in the past. And what we do is we highlight when there are changes in there. So you'll see, a red line through words that have been removed, and words highlighted in green when they've been added. And with that, you can start to get a sense of what words have worked well for you in the past. And this is really good. This for people that maybe they heard a great idea on how to optimize their listings, and so they made some wholesale changes across their whole shop. Yeah. This is a great way to maybe unravel some of those mistakes you've made in the past. So it's a really good thing for, the advanced sellers out there, or those people that have started to make some good traction on Etsy. And the other thing that I think is really powerful with EtsyRank Pro is the ability to track your competitors. And I don't mean this from a spying perspective. This is really from a benchmarking perspective, because, I would imagine that every seller multiple times in a month has gone into their stats and they've gone, what the hell has happened to my shop? Now, imagine this. You can identify 30 of your competitors, and you can start to track how many items they sell each day. Now, if you go, am I having a really bad day today, or is it just me or everyone in the same boat? With this feature, you can go in there and you can look at your closest competitors and go, it's just me. I don't need to panic today. It's the day after Father's Day or Memorial Day. Everyone's in the same boat. I can relax. It's just one of those things. It will bounce back. So that is a unique feature for EtsyRank Pro that really helps people perhaps when their motivation is waning a little bit, and just reminds you that it's okay. You're not the only one. Etsy are not punishing you. It's just how it is. The number of times I've heard about and seen these knee-jerk reactions because someone had, 3 or 4 bad days in a row. Yeah. When they, didn't realize it was happening to everyone. It just saves unnecessary panic, and gives you, especially if you're doing really well, it's also a great motivator as well, because you can start to go, I'm actually doing better than the other guys. Yes. These are the sort of things, and I think, I talked about educating, inspiring, and enabling. This is one of those real inspirational features that are in there, because let's face it, we all look at the performance sometimes and just go, oh my, what else can I do here? What else could possibly be wrong? So, it's great to have a little bit of inspiration in there. So that's the other feature that I really think is great for people to familiarize themselves with in EtsyRank Pro.
Thank you, Anthony.
I have one more, actually. Yeah. So lastly, we hear a lot of chatter nowadays about artificial intelligence and machine learning and textual search, things like that. Well, you've got to understand Etsy's motivation behind those things, and that is they want a great buyer's experience. Happy buyers equals happy sellers equals happy shareholders. Everyone wins, right? Mm-hmm. So what you need to do and remind yourself of every day is, what are you doing to make sure your customers are happy? Are you, do you have a 5-star rating? Are you doing everything you can to protect that 5-star rating? Because you know what, I won't buy from a shop that's got a 3-star rating or a 3.5-star rating. To me, something sketchy going on there. Yeah. I won't touch them. So, I don't think I'm too out of the ordinary. So if you've got a star rating that's a little low, you've got to work on that. And this is another feature that is in EtsyRank Pro. There's a ratings and review section in there. There's some parts that are free, so free users can get in there and see some of the basic information. But in the Pro section, you can go in there and you can see those ratings and reviews that have been left. And the unique thing here is that it'll highlight those reviews, especially the negative ones, that are still within this 100-day editing window. So that means that if you see a review in there and you go, oh, this person isn't happy at all, you still have a chance to change their mind. So you can get there, you can communicate with them. I mean, you've got to be very diplomatic and careful here, but the tool guides you to see which ones you could possibly reach out to and say, what can I do to make you happy here, or get you to change your review here, or remove your review. So that is one of those things that I think people really need to focus more on, protecting that 5-star rating, making sure that people are happy. You know, you've really got to look at how machine learning works. I mean, you don't need to look at it, you don't need to understand it, but boiling it down to the most sensible thing that Etsy could see here. If you sell an item and that buyer leaves positive feedback, there is no stronger signal that can be sent to Etsy that you are making customers happy than a piece of positive feedback. Yeah. Do what you can there. There's that feature in EtsyRank Pro, which I think helps highlight when you're doing a good job, or more importantly, when there's a problem that needs your attention. Because you look at it on the flip side, if you start getting a couple of pieces of negative feedback in rapid succession, that can be disaster. You know, so you're going, whoa, what's happening here? We thought we're sending good leads through to this person. They're letting everyone down. You know, the buyer's unhappy, the seller's unhappy, our shareholders are unhappy. So, you know, that feature is there to help you try and smooth a nice way to keeping that excellent trust score or 5-star rating. And that's in the EtsyRank Pro.
I'm just so amazed by all what you offer. And I like that the thought behind the tools that you offer all makes sense to what Etsy's main goal is. It's all well thought out. It's all in line with where Etsy is going. And I think that's so important because especially nowadays, like you said, Etsy, and I think everyone who is actively selling on the platform now knows that Etsy is a publicly traded company that has shareholders that they need to make happy. And so everything that they can do to make sure that Etsy is a profitable company, they're going to do. And I know in the grand scheme of things, it almost seems like, you know, well, what does that have to do with, you know, what I'm doing in my little corner of the world? But it has everything to do with that. And I like that the tools that you offer are aligned with Etsy's goals and the plan, not the plans, but, you know, what they've mapped out for their goals, which also affects us as sellers. Yeah.
You know, we need Etsy to be strong. And if we don't pull our own weight, if we ship something out and then go, thank goodness that's gone out, I hope I never hear from them again, that's probably not the right attitude to have here. You know, it's something where you need to really care because this marketplace is you're almost always entirely depending on it. So you've got to make sure you pull your weight. You know, if you ship something out, to me, a great or an exceptional user experience or buyer experience is getting an email from that seller the moment they've shipped it. You know, and if I get a message that says, "Hey, I've just shipped your item. It should be there in the next 2 or 3 days. Please let me know if it's late or anything like that." I'm going, "Oh, this is nice. This is personalized service. You know, it feels like you're flying business class, right?" Yes. And then when it arrives, you know when it arrives. So why not send them a note saying, "Hey, we noticed it arrived. I hope it came all right. If there's anything wrong with it, if it got damaged or whatever, please let me know straight away and I'll help fix it for you." Now I get that message and I go, "Huh, this person cares." Yeah. what's happening here? This is the personal service that Etsy has been talking about for 13 years now. This is what makes Etsy different to Amazon. So follow that. Don't treat them like Amazon, where you never hear from the seller again and you just hope that they don't leave a negative review. Walk them through the entire way. And then, finally, if they respond to you and say, yep, loved it, that's great. That's a great opportunity to say, what would really help me is if you leave a review. I would really appreciate that. Don't be pushy. No one likes to be pushed and forced into doing things. Mm-hmm. You know what? If you can do that, then that helps you improve your rating. It helps build your trust, and you're doing your little bit to help the Etsy community. So that's what I wanted to point out there. Remember that promise that Etsy gave to people about unique, handmade, and things like that. Follow that up. Be part of the broader team that does that.
Okay, I like that.
Thank
you. Will these tools work the same for handmade sellers as they will for vintage, one-of-a-kind sellers as they will for supply sellers, or are they more geared towards the handmade sellers?
They're geared to all sellers mostly.
Okay.
But I think anyone that sells one-of-a-kind items out there, and maybe even vintage, will say it's a little harder for them. They don't have the ability to sell multiple quantities, so they have different challenges, and there are some things that EtsyRank can't help with. So, for example, conversion rates and bestseller items, they're a little harder to figure out, obviously.
Yeah.
And that can be challenging for them. But the people that they compete with have exactly the same problem.
Okay.
So, it is what it is there. You can still use the keyword tools. You can still look at the trend information. You can still research your competitors and learn from them. Okay. It's just a little harder for one-of-a-kind and vintage sellers.
Okay. All right. That clears that up. I always wonder, because I know initially everyone thinks handmade when we're talking about Etsy and Etsy tools, but there's a whole community of vintage and one-of-a-kind sellers and supply sellers that sometimes feel neglected. So.
Yeah, I know that suppliers, people that sell supplies, they sometimes get frowned upon, but I can't think of a better place to be selling than on Etsy, because you look at all the artists that are out there, they need suppliers.
Right.
And you think about it, if you're buying from suppliers on Etsy, you're strengthening the Etsy community. They're not competing with you unless you're buying suppliers from other suppliers.
Yeah.
So, we really shouldn't be frowning on them. I think we should be looking at their success as contributing to our long-term success as well.
Yeah. And for anyone who's wondering, I did not pay Anthony to say that. I actually do sell supplies. Now, future of EtsyRank. Where do you see this suite of tools going? This service you offer. Do you have any plans for new offerings on the horizon right now?
I always do. I'll say this. Our motto, every time you log in, you'll see a little message in there, which is "From little things, big things grow." And to me, that is the essence of EtsyRank. I want to help the shop that's just starting out grow into something big. So, how do I say this? For a few years ago, Etsy released a couple of reports on the state of micro businesses in the USA. And it wasn't pretty. It highlighted how most sellers on Etsy live on or below the poverty line. And that's a terrible situation to be in, right? These sellers are selling on Etsy just to make ends meet, just to pay the bills, maybe to give the kids some spending money or something like that. It's not great. But one thing that made me really passionate about Etsy was what they're doing to change that. The work they're doing to help the community, all these people that have gone through some incredible personal hardships. and helping them enable, or hopefully get into a better state where they can be more financially independent. And to me, when I read that report, it was a very cathartic moment. I realized that it was time for me to do something. I'd worked at big companies before. I'd worked at Microsoft. I briefly worked at IBM. I worked at the Royal Bank in Canada, which is the largest bank in Canada. So I'd worked in the big companies for the machine, right? Yeah. No, this is something I want to do. This is something about giving back. So, with that in mind, for me, the vision for EtsyRank is really to help any person who wants to sell online or needs to sell online. Because let's face it, some of us absolutely have to sell online just to make those ends meet, because the job market is so terrible in some places, because maybe you didn't learn computers when you were in high school or whatever it is, right? So I want to be able to help anyone that wants to try and sell online. So I won't go into too much detail, but at the moment I'm in the process of rebuilding EtsyRank to make it faster and easier to use and make it more accessible to people who don't actually speak English as well, because I've found that about a third of EtsyRank users don't speak English, and they're using Google Translator to try and figure out what is going on this site. So This is what I want to do. So I want to try and help more people, not just in the US and Canada and the UK and Australia, but other countries as well where English is not their first language. So I hope I haven't given too many secrets away there, but that's the vision and the driving motivation behind EtsyRank.
That's fantastic. I'm so impressed. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Good deal. Good job.
I try.
Watching. Now, one of the things I like about what you do, speaking about making EtsyRank more accessible to more people, is when I signed up, I got a series of emails. I think it was a 5-part email series.
Yep.
Introducing me to the platform and how to navigate around the platform.
Yep.
Which I thought was really nice. I'll confess again, I have not really dived as deeply into it, but I saved them all in a folder because I said to myself, okay, I need to get serious about this. And what better way than to just follow out the steps that are outlined for, onboarding into the tool. So I like that you make it not just easily accessible, but that you also guide people through the process of getting set up and learning how to navigate around the tools and use them. And so the next question, and I just wanted to say that for anyone who is, thinking about using it and who feels intimidated by, yet another tool or technology, there is an onboarding process with EtsyRank, and if you follow it, I think it will help.
Yep.
Now,
I was just going to interrupt if you don't mind. I would say that with the number of tools and features and reports that we've got in there, it's a lot to take in. So poke around a little bit, start with the dashboard and click on the the red X's and things like that, and that'll help steer you in the right direction. And one thing I wanted to call out was we've got a great Facebook group with almost 3,000 other sellers in there. It's a very friendly group. I don't allow people to get in there and start saying nasty things or spreading rumors and speculation and stuff like that. We try and keep it very factual, verified methods for optimizing for Etsy and so forth. So, we have that there. And of course, send me emails. If you get stuck, I read every single email that comes in. It probably doesn't make good business sense, but you know what? Just like I was saying before, when it comes to reviews and that personal touch, if you've got a question, let me know. I'll get back to you as quickly as I can, because I want to see everyone succeed to the best of my ability.
Okay, I will find the Facebook group and I will put a link to it in the show notes for this episode. And I will try and join, and I will keep my conspiracy theories to myself.
That's fine.
I'm kidding. I have no conspiracy theories. Now, as we wrap up, I just want to maybe just touch on a couple of things that might help someone who's listening now and struggling a bit with Etsy and their presence on Etsy.
Mm-hmm.
Is there any advice you can give to Etsy sellers? Just any tips about, and it could be anything from how to optimize listings or any specific listing strategies, or just as a business person in general. You run your own business, so you understand what it takes to run a successful business. What would you say to that person listening right now that's struggling and just needs to hear something positive and encouraging?
All right. Well, I can give you a whole bunch of things. So stop me if I start rambling or going on too long here. But, there's a whole bunch of things. So as a business owner, time management is absolutely critical. So for me, and I've been pretty much a one-man band for the first 2 and a bit years on EtsyRank. I've had to really watch my time and make sure I try and balance it. And there are 2 tools that I use to help me manage my time and make sure I'm staying on plan. And the first one's Outlook. So if you've got Outlook and maybe the calendar feature, block off chunks of your day to make sure that you're doing what you need to be doing. If you're spending X amount of time creating listings, great. If you're spending X amount of time uploading listings onto Etsy, great. You should be also blocking away time to do social media marketing and things like that. For me, this probably doesn't apply to other people, but I use another program called Trello, which is great from a product management perspective. I use it to maintain my roadmap so that I can look in at the beginning of the week and go, what should I be focusing on this week? What are the 3 most important things for me to do? And I can use this tool to help me plan my week and make sure that I'm tracking and on track for delivering what I need to in a timely manner. Other things I could recommend to people would be, don't rely entirely on Etsy to drive buyers to your shop. Use social media, work on your Facebook, Pinterest, Instagram, maybe even Twitter, to get the message out there. But again, keep it in proportion. I'm a search guy, so I'm a bit more of a SEO, SEM, search engine optimization, search engine marketing. That's in my core and my heart. But social media does well, but you got to keep it in perspective. Selling on social media can be a little bit like going into a kid's soccer game and saying, who wants to buy a shirt? They're just there to have fun. But there's going to be someone there that goes, you sell shirts. That's good to know. When I'm ready, I'll go and buy one from you. So you've got to keep that in mind. So look at your tactics that you're using to bring people in. Make sure that social media is in there. I love it because it's free. For EtsyRank, it's been a great way to attract new users. So I love Facebook for that reason. But have a look at other tactics. SEO on Google or for Google is also something that is free gas for you. So EtsyRank has features within its listing audit that can help you understand if you're doing good things with your keywords that will help your listings get exposed on Google. And the keyword tool in EtsyRank, we use data from Bing, which is used by roughly about 1 in 3 or 1 in 4 Americans. So it's a massive sample, and you get a really good understanding of what the typical American user is searching for. So use the keyword tool there to find keywords for your listings, or maybe if you use Pattern or other sites, use that keyword tool to help find good words for your websites and bringing people in from Google and Bing. So that's another thing. So it's really about that multifaceted marketing tactics to bring people into your shop. So don't rely on Etsy alone. You're at the mercy of their algorithms, and there are plenty of people in the forums which will go in there and gripe about how the algorithms changed and their sales tanked. So don't expose yourself like that. Yeah. I've got a few other things. So hopefully I don't go on too long here.
No, please keep going.
A couple of things that I see people do, and I wish, please do it differently. Number one is don't make what you like to make what people want to buy. And this is a very important point, because a lot of people are brilliant at making doilies. I don't know. I don't know what it's on that. My grandmother had a lot of those on the in the house. They may be beautiful, they may be intricate, but if the demand isn't there, you can list as many as you like, you can optimize your listings as much as you like, they're not going to sell. And that can be very demotivating. Yes. You know, you can ask your friends and family, and they're all very polite, and they're going to say they're lovely, I'd buy one, and they probably will buy one. But you've got to do your market research and figure out what people want to buy. So that may mean you're excellent at making doilies, but if you do your market research, you may better make a slightly different variation, or use those skills that you've got to make something slightly different that everyone wants to buy. So have a think about that. If you're really struggling, if everyone's saying your stuff is beautiful, it's great, but no one buys it, and it's like that for a year or a year and a half of laboring away, have a think about diversifying a little bit. And if you read the Seller's Handbook, you'll see Etsy talk about diversity and variety often, over and over again, and that's one of the reasons why. I'd also say, since I was talking about the Seller's Handbook, read it. Please read it. You know, Etsy go to great length to tell you how to list on Etsy and how to be effective. So, you know, they're not going to go in there and say, go and do this when something else has to be done. You know, they are the best source of information. And if you can't read the Seller's Handbook, I'll give you these 3 articles to read. And I use these to build a lot of the tools in EtsyRank. First one is how to get found in search. And I can give you links to these later on. Okay. How Etsy search works, and what to do when you notice a dip in sales. Those 3, in my mind, are the most important articles you can read from Etsy. You should read those regularly, look out for changes, memorize them, come back to them regularly. You know, I see so many rumors and speculation out there that contradict what's said in there. And I'm not going to believe it until I see it coming directly from an Etsy employee or somewhere on an official Etsy publication. So keep that in mind. Those 3 articles, I'll give you links for that later, and hopefully you can share them with people.
Yes.
The other thing is, and I was alluding to that, be wary of those strategies that do contradict what Etsy publish. It doesn't mean they're wrong. And they're certainly okay for doing small A/B testing, but just be very careful. Don't think that you've just learnt the secret for success on Etsy. You know, if you feel like what you just heard makes total sense, go and test it. Try it on a couple of listings that haven't been doing too well. See if it makes any difference. Create a new listing and try out that tactic, but just be very careful. Anything that contradicts what Etsy says, be very, very careful. And, you know, the last thing, and I've talked about this earlier about building trust, don't try and game the system. If you're still playing favorite games and things like that, get out of there. You know,
my goodness,
it's not good. You know, all it's doing is it's fodder for machine learning algorithms. You know, you look at what Etsy needs to do. They need to make happy buyers. If you're going to play favorite games, there's no buyers involved here. Yeah. You're generating views, you're generating favorites, but you're not generating any sales. What does that send to those machine learning algorithms? They're going to go, well, I just showed this listing 1,000 times and not one person bought it. Why should I keep showing it? Mm-hmm. So don't play these games. You know, really, it used to be possible way back when, but, you know, don't play games now. The machine learning algorithms, the artificial intelligence, they are becoming so good at spotting fake activity and deceptive tactics. Don't do it. You know, avoid stuffing keywords into your listings and other shenanigans. You know, it's too hard to fool the algorithms now. So that's really it. And I'd probably finish by just recapping. You know, top priority, if I was a new or even an established shop, is really working on your reputation. Like I said earlier, get those positive reviews. Work on protecting that 5-star rating. And, you know, if you want a bit of a goal, I would say aim for at least having 1 in 4 people leaving you a positive review. I found that, and this is just anecdotally, I found that the most successful shops that I see out there have that sort of ratio. And you may have to work a little bit harder to catch up to those. So if you've got like 1 in 10 people leaving you a positive review, guess what that tells Etsy and their algorithms? It's not telling them everyone loves this so much they're going to leave a positive review. It's telling them something else. So you want to move all doubt that you possibly can and let Etsy start to trust your shop. So get working on those reviews, try and sweet talk those buyers into leaving some positive reviews or erasing those negative ones.
Now, speaking about getting reviews, I know this is something that a lot of sellers struggle with because in general, a lot of buyers don't come back and leave reviews.
Yep.
What's the best way to elicit a review without going outside the bounds of what Etsy's guidelines for communicating with our buyers?
Yeah, I think you've got to walk them through the entire purchase cycle.
Okay.
So
Like
once they buy, send them a note saying thank you, hope you like it. Once it's shipped, let them know that's going to be there in 2 or 3 days, and then follow up once it's arrived to make sure it's okay. And then at that point, you've established a communication, a direct line of communication with them, and they will feel comfortable telling you it was fine or something was wrong. Can you help me? Maybe return it and replace it with something else or refund it or something like that. Once you've got that communication there, you're not an anonymous face in the crowd. You're not like an Amazon now. You are like the ideal seller that Etsy is looking for, someone that has that personalized touch that separates you from the crowd. So if you can do that, I think you're on the right path. But be gentle. Please don't bully people. That won't work at all.
Yes, no, I know. And for me, that's good advice for me as well, because I know I'm not very diligent about the follow through. I do everything up until it gets sent, but I know I'm not good about checking.
Oh, it's scary. It's scary. You might start off selling one item a month, and the last thing you want to do is encourage them to send it back.
Yes.
But on the flip side, you need to build that trust. So I would always lean towards building that trust than trying to bury my head in the sand and hope that they don't leave bad feedback.
Yeah. And I guess this is somewhere where using the snippets tool in Etsy might help to have something, a message that you send when it's easy enough when you're doing the shipping. There's an email that goes out. You can customize that. But when you're tracking the package, once it's delivered, a message that you send to your buyers, personalized, of course, but the body can be similar, saying, "Oh, I saw it was delivered. I hope everything was okay." That type of thing.
Yep.
And just leveraging some of this. Etsy gives so many useful tools. And I think sometimes we don't use them as much, and without them ramming it down our throats. If you think about it, a lot of the tools that they do offer on the site the goal is, as you said, to give the best customer experience. We just need to really use them and leverage them properly.
Absolutely. Yep.
Anthony, thank you so much for coming on, for sharing all about EtsyRank. I have to say, I've been making furious notes, and I'm even more motivated now than before to just jump in there to go and read the onboarding emails and learn how to actually use EtsyRank. Especially like this summer, I'm taking time to focus more on my Etsy shop because like I might have mentioned before, with the podcast, my shop seems to take a back seat. So I'm jumping back into just giving it the attention that it needs. And I think, this is just the perfect time for me to really learn EtsyRank and use the tools that you offer. I'll be talking about them more on the podcast as I learn more and go through the system. So I'm so glad for this intro. Thank you for telling us more about it. And what's the best way anyone can get in touch with you if they have additional questions or just want to learn more about EtsyRank or have a question about something perhaps we didn't get to talk about?
Yeah, well, the Best way is email, anthony@etsyrank.com. And if you're a EtsyRank member already, you're welcome to join our Facebook group. Like I said earlier, we've got about 3,000 members on there. Many of them will get in there and help you out. And I'm often in there as well, answering questions. And that's probably the best way if you've got any questions, either email or through Facebook.
Okay, sounds good. I will put a link to the EtsyRank Facebook group in the show notes for this episode, as well as Anthony's email, so you can reach out to him. And of course, EtsyRank is available at etsyrank.com. And I was going to say something else and then I forgot. But Anthony, thank you so much for being my guest on the podcast again. I'm so glad that we could do this.
It's an absolute pleasure. Thank you very much for having me on.
You are welcome. And I thank you for listening to the podcast. I will be back next week.
Thank you for listening. You can subscribe to the podcast in iTunes, and while you're there, please leave a review too. Visit convome.com to leave a comment or feedback on this episode.